So, what if the story of Adam and Eve, the one with forbidden fruit, wasn't actually about fruit at all? What if it was about a transgression that literally created two different human bloodlines, one good and one just inherently evil? Today, we're going to dig into the serpent seed doctrine, a really dangerous belief that's been used for centuries to justify all kinds of hatred and violence.
Everything starts with this one simple question. It seems pretty out there, right? But asking, what if Cain wasn't Adam's son, is the key that unlocks this entire belief system. It's a total rereading of the book of Genesis, and it lays the groundwork for a world that's divided into good and evil right from birth.
So at its core, the doctrine says the fall of man wasn't about eating an apple. No, it was a sexual act between Eve and the serpent. And that single radical idea creates two completely separate bloodlines, one good, coming from Adam, and one that is just plain evil, coming straight from the serpent.
And this is where the doctrine really jumps from being some ancient myth to a modern ideology. It basically reframes all of human history as this huge cosmic battle between these two groups. For the people who believe this, it's not just a story. It is the only lens through which they see the world even today.
The implications here are, well, they're huge. You end up with these two distinct seed lines. One, from Adam, is seen as righteous and good, but the other, from the serpent, is considered inherently wicked, maybe even soulless, and doomed from the start. This belief just sets the stage for a massive conflict that followers see playing out everywhere, all through history.
Now, here's what's really fascinating. You hear this, and it sounds like some modern-day conspiracy theory you'd find on the internet, right? But its roots are actually ancient, popping up in texts that were, pretty quickly rejected by mainstream religions.
One of the first times we see this idea is way back in early Gnostic Christian texts, like the Gospel of Philip, from around 350 AD. Right away, early church fathers like Irenaeus called it out, saying it was a dangerous heresy that totally twisted the real story.
And it wasn't just in Gnostic texts. The idea also popped up in some medieval Jewish literature. In this one, the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, the serpent is actually identified as an angel named Samael, who desired Eve and became Cain's father. But for centuries, these ideas were just fringe interpretations.
So for more than 1,000 years, this idea kind of stayed on the theological sidelines. It was out there, but not mainstream. So what changed? What brought it roaring back to life? Well, to understand that, we have to fast forward all the way to 19th century America.
So in the 1800s, this old heresy suddenly finds a new audience. It starts with preachers like Daniel Parker, but the really big shift comes with something called British Israelism, which made the bizarre claim that Anglo-Saxons were the true descendants of Adam. And then in 1894, a guy named Russell Kelso Carter takes that final terrible step. He argues Cain was the literal biological son of the serpent. And just like that, the doctrine was officially racialized and ready to be used as a weapon.
If the 19th century gave this idea a new life, the 20th century is where it found its most fired up and dangerous followers. This is when it became a core belief for some of America's most infamous white supremacist groups. The serpent seed idea found a very welcoming home inside the Christian identity movement. This is a theology that claims white people are the true Israelites from the Bible. And it was pushed heavily within groups like the Ku Klux Klan and the Aryan Nations, basically to give their racist views a kind of divine permission slip.
And if you want to see just how horrifying this ideology gets, you don't have to look any further than their own texts. This passage here explicitly claims that modern Jews are the descendants of Cain, that they are, and I'm quoting, biologically descended from the devil and are part of a global conspiracy. It even calls non-white races soulless beasts. Guys like Wesley Swift, who founded a church that later became the Aryan Nations, were the key prophets of this hate. And during the Civil Rights era, they really weaponized the serpent seed doctrine. They used it as a divine reason to fight against racial integration and to condemn interracial marriage as a sin against God himself.
So the core idea is there. But here's the thing. Not every group that follows this doctrine agrees on who exactly belongs to the serpent's evil bloodline.
Yeah, this evil seed line idea turns out to be a very flexible concept. It allows different groups to basically plug in whoever they want as the enemy. So for Christian identity, it's pretty clear, Jews and non-white races. But the really influential preacher William Branham, he expanded the list to include educated people in so-called hybrid races. Others, like Arnold Murray, pinpointed a specific group called Kenites. And then you've got the Unification Church, which has a unique take. It applies to all of humanity, until they get a special blessing, that is.
Now you might be thinking, okay, this is some super obscure, forgotten belief. But you'd be wrong. An organization that distributes his teachings estimates that more than 2 million people worldwide still follow the message of William Branham, who was one of this doctrine's most successful promoters.
So after going through all that, what's the big takeaway here? What's the real legacy of this deeply disturbing belief system today?
Its legacy is, well, it's one of deep division and hatred. It gives its followers what they see as a divine mission, a green light for anti-Semitism and racism. It was the theological engine for groups like the Aryan Nations and the KKK in their fight against integration. It turns normal political disagreements into a holy war between pure and impure bloodlines, a literal battle between the children of God and the children of the devil.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to point out that this is a fringe belief. Mainstream Christianity, across the board, rejects this doctrine as a complete heresy. And the main reason why is simple. It comes directly from the Bible itself. Genesis chapter 4, verse 1 explicitly states, Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain. It's right there in black and white.
Ultimately, the story of the serpent seed doctrine is just this powerful and frankly terrifying example of how an obscure, ancient idea, one that was condemned as heresy from the very beginning, can be dug up, twisted, and reforged into a powerful weapon. A tool for division, for racism, and for violence that, unfortunately, continues to find an audience even today.